Thumma. Growing up, I always wondered why we grow. Yes, very fascinating, right? Why do we grow? Like, shouldn't we just stay the same age? Like, it's kind of weird, but yeah, right?
It is kind of weird.
But to me, whenever I grew, I guess, I always felt a sense of accomplishment, even though I never really understood what I really accomplished. Like, I just grew an inch, like, what's the big deal? But like, I felt like I accomplished something. And I'm sure we've all felt that before. I can guarantee that all of you have felt that sense of accomplishment at some point in your life. I mean, classic examples include like walking on your tippy toes to like feel taller, you know? Like measuring your height every 10 seconds. Fantasizing about like your future. Like, and all the little crushes we had as kids, like that all ties into aging as well. And it kind of goes to show how even as kids in our childhood, we were always thinking about the future instead of enjoying the present almost. My parents would always say to me, enjoy your childhood, you only live it once. But that never really sunk in until I turned 18 this past year. And which I'm sure most of you can relate to. If you can't, have fun still being a child while you can. But no matter what, our parents always see us as their little babies, which is unfortunately something we can't really see in them. I mean, they're not babies. Yeah. They can't see us as babies because they see the youth in us, which we can't really see in them. I mean, this is how we see them pretty much. I mean, yeah.
Pretty accurate.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when I was a kid, my dad used to give me piggyback rides all over the place. Now you probably land in the hospital if you try. Granted, I weigh a lot more, but the point is, the people we aspired to be like can't do all the things we aspired them for in the first place anymore. And it's not their fault. It's not anyone's fault. But it is something's fault. And that something is aging. Now more than ever, especially in the 21st century, aging is occurring at an alarming rate. For some perspective, in about 10 years, all baby boomers will be above the age of 65. By 2035, older people will outnumber younger people for the first time in American history. And in 2018, the number of people older than 64 years surpassed the number of people younger than 5 years for the first time in human history. With this already occurring in places like the United States in 1966, Spain in 1970, South Korea in the year 2000, and even projections even show that countries like India will experience this in the year 2028. And the most populated country in the world, China, will have 39% of its population over retirement by the year 2050. But to really understand aging, we need to go into the origins of aging itself. Why do we age? A theory developed by J.B.S. Haldane and Peter Medwar and that biologist dude came up with a theory to explain this. The theory essentially states that aging is the accumulation of bad mutations in our genes that we pass on to our offspring from generation to generation that only take effect later in life. If you think about it, mutations that occur early on in life when you're a kid usually end up killing you before you can even reproduce. But mutations that don't take effect until after you reproduce still get passed on to your offspring. So they then experience those same bad mutations that you do later in life. And the theory essentially states that it's pretty much that process occurring over time, from generation to generation, for all of time essentially, that created the accumulation of mutations that we call aging. So that going based on that definition, and from an evolutionary standpoint, aging is essentially a genetic disease. The catch being every living being has it. And the problem is, we don't see aging as a disease. Instead, we try to cure the things caused by aging, like cardiovascular disease, diabetes, arthritis. Those are all aging-related disorders, which we try to cure and which a lot of money goes into funding and researching it. But it's not the problem at the core. The core of the problem is aging itself. And the label disease has more value than you think. Anything labeled a disease creates an ethical imperative to research it and fund it to solve it. But aging doesn't have that label. Aging is just something we see as natural, that occurs as a part of life, like we age and then we die. But that's not the case. For example, with Alzheimer's, when we recognize it as a late onset, when we recognize it as a pathology, it created that ethical imperative to fund more research, to fund just more funding going into that, which eventually led to developments that improved Alzheimer's and treatments that could help patients deal with it. But that's not the main problem. Yes, that's nice, helping patients with Alzheimer's, but we need to solve what's at the core of all. Big biotech companies are receiving major funding from private investors. For example, Unity Biotech received over $300 million in funding, and one of their major investors being Jeff Bezos himself. And that money is being put to good use. In 2016, animal trials were conducted by Unity Biotech. 2 mice were used in the experiment to test an anti-aging treatment. The treatment essentially targets and kills senescent cells inside the living organism. Senescent cells are essentially cells that don't work anymore. A cell can only divide so many times before it just stops functioning. Those cells don't go anywhere. They just stay in your body. And the accumulation of those cells is what leads to us becoming deformed as time progresses. But this treatment essentially goes into the body and kills or removes those cells from the living organism. And as you can see here, these 2 mice are brothers, born on the same day. One received the treatment and one did not. And after the experiment ended, after I think it was like about a year, you can clearly see the difference in the mice. Same age, but one physically shows the effects of aging while one does not. The experiment resulted in a 33% extension of life, with showing other side effects, positive side effects, such as increased kidney function and bigger and stronger hearts, more capable of handling stress. And the main point of this whole experiment is to show that we have the technology we eventually will need to come up with a more practical and usable solution to attack aging itself and potentially halt or slow it down. In conclusion, I just want to state that age is not just a number, or at least it shouldn't be. I mean, aging affects almost every aspect of our lives, from what we can and can't do mentally and physically. It's a part of our life. It controls us in ways other things can't. It's aging. Aging is slowly killing us. I mean, right now, in this very moment, all of us are slowly dying. I mean, I mean, every person who has ever lived has died. I mean, that's just a simple fact. The air we're breathing, I mean, you could even make the argument that the air we're breathing is technically killing us, but it doesn't take effect until 80 years in the future. I mean, literally you can say aging is just death, essentially. Yeah. And, but with this treatment in the future, we could essentially live up to 150 years of age. And all of you could look like you look right now in your 40s or 50s maybe. But that won't be possible unless we start seeing aging as a disease. The sooner we start seeing it that way, the sooner we can start living better, longer, and quality lives. The first step is to stop seeing death as a natural occurrence in life, to start seeing it as a natural enemy to life itself.